Hi everyone, I'm Steve and this is the College Support Network. In the past, I've worked in high schools as a college advisor, and I also have experiences in college admissions, financial aid, as well as academic advising. I'm really passionate about college access, and I know researching for and applying to college can be really confusing as well as frustrating. That's why I'm here to provide you all with the most accurate and quality information so you can reach your college goals. Today is the first video of a two-part series where I'll be walking you through the entire California State University or CSU application. Specifically in this video, I'll be providing you all with some general key tips and key things to think about before you actually start the application. From there, I'll walk you through the first couple steps of the actual application. The first being just how to start and how to create your account. Second, I'll talk about how to select programs as well as go over the main screen that you'll be seeing on the CSU application. Lastly, for this video, I'll be going over the personal information section, and then I'll be discussing how you should actually fill out some of the questions that are listed there. Before we get started with the actual contents of this video, there are a couple of things I want you to know about before we get started. The first is, this video is informational only. That means everything that I'm providing you with or all the information that I'm discussing today is just informational. I'm not really saying how you should exactly fill out some portions of this application. It really depends on the student, just because, like I mentioned in a lot of different videos, every student has a different situation, you all have different experiences, and therefore there's no one exact way to fill out the application. If you ever have specific questions about how to fill out a certain section, I really advise you all to contact your parents or legal guardians, or even better, a guidance or college counselor on your local high school campus. With that being said though, I'm definitely here to help out with any questions that I can answer. So if you have any general questions or just some questions about the CSU application that you're not familiar with, feel free to leave that in the comments below. I'd love to help whenever I can. The second important thing to remember about this video is that it's only going to be going over the actual application, so I won't be going over things such as financial aid, admission requirements, SAT, ACT, eligibility requirements, and other things like that. For more information about some of the things I just mentioned, I do have a CSU overview video on my channel, so I'll link that below as well as in the cards above. But then also, if you have any questions, like I said, general questions about the CSU, feel free to comment that below as well. And one last thing to remember, and probably the most important thing in this entire video, is please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'm sorry, but it really does help the channel out. In all seriousness though, the last thing that you should remember is that when you're filling out this application, some of the pages that you're going to see and some of the information that's going to be provided for you is going to be a little bit different from what you see on my screen, as well as what you see in some parts of this video. And the reason for that is because when I was creating this video and creating the contents for this video, the application for the fall 2021 semester wasn't made available yet. But if you're watching this video on the day it's been released, which is probably going to be October 1st, then the fall 2021 deadline will be available for you already. So make sure to know that difference and know that I might be applying for a different semester, just because, like I said, when I was creating the video, it wasn't made available yet. Alright, so now that that's all out of the way, let's get started with the actual contents of this video. The very first tip or thing that students should know is that CSUs do not review students holistically, at least in the past. This means they don't look at things such as extracurricular activities, awards, and honors, and then they also don't look at any personal insight questions or essays that you have to fill out. In the past, they've only used the eligibility index to score and admit students onto their campuses. Essentially, the eligibility index is just an index that is a calculation of your test scores as well as your GPA. And when I say test scores, that usually means the ACT or the SAT. However, with all that being said, there are some changes that students should be aware of. Specifically, if you're applying for the 2021 to 2022 academic calendar, there are some changes for your specific year or academic year that you should know about. I don't want to go into too much detail here, just because there are some changes depending on the type of student you are, such as if you're a transfer student, if you're a freshman student, if you're an in-state student or out-of-state, and so on. So I'll leave all that information as well as some other important links that I use for this video down in the description box below. But for the purpose of this video, I do want to go over two important things that I think most students should be aware of. The first is that SAT and ACT scores would not be used for students, like I said, specifically for the academic year 2021 to 2022. The second thing is, based on your GPA and the special population that you may or may not be in, you might be evaluated based on other factors such as extracurriculars, activities, and honors, household income, and even the number of A to G courses that exceed the minimum amount. The important thing to remember here is that every single campus that you're applying to is going to have different supplemental information that they want or need that they're going to be using for evaluating your application. So make sure to contact every CSU campus that you're applying to get more information if you need it. And the next tip I have for you all, and it's something that I mentioned in the UC application video as well, but it's just please remember to have any official or unofficial test scores as well as transcripts out with you while you're filling out the CSU application. This really is important because if you make any mistakes at all, this can really delay your application and admission, and some campuses might actually deny you outright if you put in the wrong information or the information you put down was not correct. And the next tip is, although the CSU application is not as long as the UC application, it still requires a lot of time for you to complete. So like I said in other videos, make sure to pace yourself and try not to do all of this in one day because you will definitely burn yourself out. There are still a lot of questions that you have to answer, so making sure that you have ample time to answer them all will be really beneficial to you. And with knowing that the CSU application is long, the next tip is pretty important as well, and it's just to remember that the CSU application does not have an autosave feature. This means that every single time you fill out a page, you should definitely make sure to save it at the bottom. I believe the function is called save and continue, so make sure to save that page if you fill out some more information, just because you don't want to come back another day and start filling out the application just to see that none of the information you put down before has been saved. So those are the general tips that I have for you all. If any student watching this or any counselor or teacher is watching this and you have some other comments or tips that might be important, please make sure to comment that below to help other students as well as help me make these videos a little bit better. With all that being said, now I want to walk you through the actual CSU application. To start with your actual application, students should be visiting the Cal State University Apply or CSU Apply website and then create an account from there. Once you're on the CSU main page, you want to scroll down a little bit and find the select a term to apply for button. Like I said in the beginning of this video, what you're seeing right now is a little bit different just because I don't have the option to apply for the fall 2021 semester. However, when you're watching this video, the option should be available for you, so make sure to go ahead and click fall 2021 or whatever semester that you do plan on applying for. Once you click on the term that you're applying for, you'll be led to the login page. From here, I assume most of you won't have an account or a profile yet, so go ahead and click on create an account and fill out all the information that it's asking or requiring of you. For the most part, they'll just be asking you for your name, contact information, username, and then the password that you want for your account. So it's going to be pretty similar to pretty much any other website or account that you've made in the past. So once you create your account and log in, the very first page that you're going to see is the select a program page. And essentially, program is just another fancy way of saying what major you want to choose. So on this page, you'll be selecting the campuses that you want to apply for, as well as the major that you want to apply for. There's a couple different filters that you can apply or use on this page, but for the most part, I usually tell students to just select the campus that they're applying for and just make sure that they have the correct term or start terms. So whenever you plan on starting your college career, just make sure to click on the correct one. Campus is probably going to be the most important filter that you use, just because, like I said before, you're going to be selecting individual campuses that you want to apply to, and then down below, after you select the campus, you'll see the different majors that they have provided for you for the academic term. This part of the application is pretty self-explanatory. You want to go ahead and click on the campus that you want to apply for, and then go down below and select the major or the majors that you want to apply for. Some campuses require or have the option for you to choose an alternate major. This is entirely up to you if you want to choose one or not. As I mentioned in the UC video, an alternate major is not a double major or two majors that you're going to be coming in with. It just means if you don't get admitted or reviewed for your first major, then they'll look at you for admission for your second major or your alternate major. Once you've selected the campus and major that you want to apply for, go ahead and click on the plus button that you see on the screen, and then this should add the actual campus and major to your application. To add more campuses and majors, what students want to do is go back to the campus filter and then click on campus name. From here, all the other campuses and universities should show up, and then now you can add more campuses and majors. The great thing about this page is that it actually tells you the total amount that you're going to have to pay for the entire application. As some students may be aware, the CSU application is $70 per school that you apply to. For students that are really unsure about what majors to choose, or maybe if you're even unfamiliar or don't know about which campuses you're going to match and fit with, go ahead and watch some of the videos that I have on my YouTube channel. I have one specifically for majors and I have one specifically for building a college list. So like I said, if you're unsure or have questions about some of the things I just mentioned, go ahead and check those videos out. Once you're done with your selections, you can go ahead and click on the I am done button at the top. From there, you'll be led to a page where you could review the different programs that you're applying for. So once you're done reviewing your selections, you could actually go ahead and click on My Application at the top left, and then you'll be able to see the main page or the main screen for the entire CSU application. As you can see, there are going to be 4 different quadrants or 4 different sections that students will have to fill out before they can submit their application. The quadrants include personal information, academic history, other information, as well as program materials. For each individual quadrant, you might be able to see that there are specific numbers that are listed there as well. The numbers that you see are basically subsections that you'll have to complete before that entire quadrant or section is completed. And then you can also see a green circle around each individual quadrant. The green circle will get fuller and fuller as you complete more steps or as you complete more subsections. So you'll know when an entire section is completed once that entire section or entire quadrant is green. So the very first quadrant or the very first section that students should be filling out is a personal information section. The first couple subsections in this section is related to your release statement as well as your biographic and contact information. The release statement section is just you promising that every single piece of information that you're providing on this entire application is truthful and honest to your own knowledge. The next 2 questions on the release statement section is just you authorizing the CSU application to provide your information to the specific CSU campuses that you're applying to so they can learn more about your situation and learn more about who you are as a student. This also gives the CSU permission to view your California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, also known as your CAP scores. So then they could use it for things such as credit, placement, determination of readiness for college level coursework, as well as admissions. For pretty much all students, I recommend you to just authorize and allow the CSUs to have access to this information. It really won't hurt you in the long run, and it will actually allow them to get access to your information so then they can make their decisions about your application sooner. And for the biographic and contact information sections, I don't want to go into too much detail just because a lot of it is pretty self-explanatory. The most important thing to remember here is just to fill it out to the best of your own knowledge. This means just putting down the most accurate information that you have available to you, and maybe even contacting your parents or legal guardians if you have any questions or if you're unsure about how to answer any of the questions. This is really important because every piece of information that you're providing here needs to show up exactly as it does on your government papers, as well as your academic profile in high school, such as your transcripts, as well as your test scores such as the ACT, SAT, and even AP exams. When I say government forms, it also just means that it has to show up exactly as it does on your birth certificate, social security number if you have one, and other forms like that. And to this point, the California State University will also ask you for your California Statewide Student ID, also known as your SSID. Essentially, the California Statewide Student ID is a 10-digit number that's assigned to you if you attended a public California K-12 school. You'll be able to find this ID on your high school transcripts or any other transcripts that you have if you attended a California school. For students that don't have this information or didn't go to a school in California, you can feel free to skip this section. The next couple of subsections in the personal information quadrant is related to your citizenship and residency, as well as your race and ethnicity. For the citizenship and residency sections, I really advise you all to contact your parents or your legal guardians to really get help on how to answer some of the questions that are here. I don't have the information for you, unfortunately, just because every student is going to be a little bit different. If you are a California resident, however, for the residency section, there's going to be a question that says, do you claim California residency? If you do, please make sure to click yes. I know this confuses students every single year, and I have a lot of students that miss out or have to pay out-of-state tuition the very first semester because they made a mistake on the CSU application. So please make sure to ask your parents or legal guardians for this information if it does apply to you. For the race and ethnicity sections, you'll be asked to provide information regarding, you guessed it, your race and ethnicity. Please note that in this section, a lot of the information that you are providing is for statistical purposes only. However, if you are opting into answering some of the questions below or some of the questions in this section, just make sure to answer them to the best of your ability. A lot of it is going to be specifically related to you, so for the most part, you don't have any wrong or right answers. The next subsection in the personal information quadrant is related to your parents or legal guardians. In this section, you'll be asked to provide demographic information about your parents, legal guardians, or anyone else that takes care of you. Please note that if you are a dependent student, meaning someone takes care of you, you will have to provide information about at least one parent or guardian. Once you click add, you'll see more questions that are related to your specific parent or legal guardian. You'll be given options to provide information such as name and relationship to you, residency, address, contact information, and authorization to contact. For this very specific section, I really do advise you to have your parents or legal guardians sitting directly next to you when you're filling it out, just because you want to make sure that the information that you're providing about them is as accurate as possible. And who else better to have next to you than your actual parent or legal guardian? Lastly, for this section, if you do live with both your parents or two legal guardians, you'll want to make sure to provide information about both of them. The next subsection in the personal information quadrant is related to other information that is pretty important for the CSU campuses to know. In the first half of this subsection, you'll be asked to provide information about your social security number if you do have one, and then you'll be asked about your language proficiency as well as your military status. First off, if you do have a social security number, you are required to provide this information. If not, simply just leave it blank and move on. And for language proficiency and military status, as always, just answer these questions to the best of your own knowledge. If you're unsure, contact your parents or your legal guardians or maybe even your guidance counselor if they know the answer to some of these questions. The next couple of questions in this subsection is related to your academic standing, conduct, and infractions. Without going into too much detail, these questions are mainly to get an idea of how you are as a student as well as learn more about who you are as a student. Mainly, they want to see if you've been disciplined for academic performance or conduct in the past, and depending on how you answer these questions, more questions will pop up or show up as you answer these questions. So make sure to be as truthful and honest as you can be when you're answering them. For the teacher credential or credential question, you could go ahead and skip this. This is actually just for graduate students. I'm not sure why they have it on the application, but basically it's just asking for students that are interested in going into a career in teaching, or they want to get a specific credential to help them teach in the future. So like I said, you could go ahead and just skip it. However, the next two questions related to CalFresh and California Promise is going to be relevant to all undergraduate students. The CalFresh question is basically you indicating whether you are interested in checking your eligibility for monthly food assistance, which can be used towards groceries through the CalFresh program. I really advise any student that thinks they may not be able to afford groceries or just food on their table for themselves or their families in the future to select this option, just because it's a really great program and they really do provide you with a lot of support. The last question in this subsection is related to the California Promise. Essentially, the California Promise is a pledge program for first-time students or freshmen who are interested in graduating in 4 years. Additionally, this program, our Promise, is limited to California residents only. The California Promise is really great in my opinion for a couple of different reasons. The first is that it actually gives you priority registration for some of the semesters or some of the campuses that you apply to. So you'll be able to register for classes before some other students. The next is it actually provides you with very thorough academic advisement on top of any other academic advisement that you're getting. Basically, students are required to meet with their academic advisor at least every semester, and this is great just because it helps you keep on track with your degree requirements and then helps you graduate on time. And the last great thing about the California Promise is that there's actually no negative consequences for breaking your pledge. Obviously, you should still try to keep the pledge to the best of your ability. However, if you do break your pledge and you end up graduating in 5 years instead, you won't get kicked out of the school. Obviously, you'll lose the benefits such as priority registration and thorough academic advisement, but the most important thing is that you won't get kicked out of school, so you'll still be able to complete your degree in the time that you need to complete it. So like I said, I really advise you all to just click yes on the California Promise and then just see where it takes you. And the very last subsection in the personal information quadrant is related to your financial and parent information. In this section, you'll be asked whether you are a dependent or independent student, if you're interested in on-campus housing, more information about your parents' prior education, and lastly, more information about your household size as well as your household income. If you list yourself as a dependent student based on the information on this page, you'll be then asked follow-up questions regarding household size, adjusted gross income, and untaxed income and benefits. Although the information here does not actually determine your financial aid or the financial aid that you'll be receiving if you attend a CSU campus, it really is important to have as accurate information as possible just because they will be able to find out if you were truthful or not based on the information that you provided. When you're filling out this section with your parents, legal guardians, or maybe if you're doing it by yourself, just please make sure that you're using the previous tax year's information. This means for students that are applying for fall 2021, you don't want to use tax information for the current year, which is 2020. You want to use tax information for the previous year, which should be 2019. Once you get to the household size section, make sure that you're including every single person in the household. This includes your parents or guardians, yourself, other dependent children or your siblings, other dependents such as your aunts, uncles, and cousins, or maybe even grandparents that your parents or legal guardians take care of or support more than 50%. This just means that if they live in your home and your parents or legal guardians are supporting them in any way, such as paying for their college tuition or paying for food or rent or the mortgage, they should be listed as part of the household size. For your parents' adjusted gross income, make sure to contact your parents or legal guardians for this information. Unfortunately, I don't have this information for you, and most likely you don't have this information yourself. If you do, it's probably just a rough number. If you can, ask your parents or legal guardians and get an exact number if you can. And the very last question is untaxed benefits and income. Honestly, this could be a lot of different things because a lot of different things qualify for untaxed income and benefits. I'll go ahead and leave information here on the screen so you could all look it over with your parents or legal guardians. As always, you just want to make sure that the information that you're providing is as accurate as possible. Alright y'all, so that's it for this video. As I mentioned earlier, this is just the first video of a two-part series where I'll be walking you through the entire CSU application. In the second video, I'll be going over the entire academic history, which I think is probably the most important part of the entire application. Then I'll be going over the last two quadrants, which includes the supporting information quadrant, as well as the program materials quadrant. So if you haven't done so already, please make sure to subscribe so you could be the first to view that. Before I close out this video though, I do have a couple questions for you. The very first question is, which CSU campuses are you planning on applying to? And the second question is based on the information provided in this video, so mostly about the personal information as well as how to get started with the application. What do you find most confusing about the CSU application? This is really important for me because I really want to gather as much information as possible about some of the questions or concerns that you may have. So definitely leave your answers or maybe even some questions down in the comments below if you do have any. I'll make sure to answer them or make sure to read them as soon as possible and comment whenever I can. Alright y'all, with all that being said, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video. You could have been doing anything else, but you spent it here with me today learning about college. I think that's super awesome. As always, thumbs if you learned and subs if you loved. Take care y'all.